Hey everyone, I'm Alex Valbergs with CSTV Sports.
And I'm Gulino.
And this is Fantasy Booms and Busts for Week 13. Unfortunately, this is going to be the last show of the semester for us. And it's the last week, usually for most leagues, before the playoffs start in fantasy football. So we're going to try and help you maybe get that late season win that you need to get into the playoffs. And the guy I really want to start with is Colin Kaepernick of the San Francisco 49ers. He's been all over the news lately. He's got great athletic ability, and he's taken Alex Smith's job from him. Usually they say you can't lose your job because of injury, but Kaepernick's played that well that he forced Jim Harbaugh to make a decision. I think he made the right one. Kaepernick is definitely more talented than Smith. He's got 10 yards per attempt and 4 touchdowns in his last 2 games, and he's playing the Rams this week. So I really think I like Colin Kaepernick. I think he's a top 10 play this week. I know you like Tony Romo, CJ. Yeah. Why do you like Tony Romo? He's been kind of up and down this year.
Yeah, he has. He hasn't been the most consistent quarterback ever, but, I mean, they're facing the struggling Eagles defense, and the Eagles defense has been allowing the opposing quarterbacks to put up a minimum of 15 points. And Romo has been inconsistent, but I think everyone knows when Romo's on, he's on. And I think with a struggling defense like this, I don't see why he wouldn't put up big numbers.
Yeah, Philly's defense looked really bad on Monday night versus the Panthers. There were some Cam Newton hit some wide open guys for touchdowns.
Could drive a car through those holes.
Yeah, and you also like Des Bryant, probably for the same reasons as the secondary. It was a bad call a couple weeks ago. I said to sit Des Bryant, and he had a monster game. But we also said to sit Matt Schaub.
That didn't go well.
He had 520 yards and 5 touchdowns. That was a good call. Yeah. It's a good call by us. Maybe you shouldn't listen to us. Another wide receiver that we're going to talk about is Justin Blackmon. He really didn't make no noise the first 10 weeks of the season, and he had a breakout game 2 weeks ago, had over 200 yards against Houston.
Unfortunately.
And in his last 2 games, he's had 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I really like him this week going up against Buffalo. I like the whole Jaguars passing game. Chad Henne has revitalized their offense. I mean, I never thought I'd say that Chad Henne would revitalize any offense, but he's a big step up from Blaine Gabbert, apparently. And the other wide receiver I'd like to talk about is Ryan Broyles. Not a lot of guys know him. He's a rookie out of Oklahoma. He's actually the all-time college football. Leads all-time in college football in receptions, and he's playing the Colts. Last week he had 12 targets and 6 catches for over 100 yards. And with Titus Young out, Titus Young is in Jim Schwartz's doghouse right now. Yeah. So I like Ryan Broyles. I think if anyone's going to make people take attention away from Calvin Johnson, maybe just a little bit, it's Ryan Broyles. And just moving to running backs, Chris Johnson is on your like list. He's really picked it up after that really terrible start.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Johnson, unfortunately, is facing the Houston Texans this week. However, I mean, he started off so slow this year, but when he faced them in Week 4, he really turned it around. He ran for over 120 yards, and since then he's been averaging 112 or plus yards per game. And even though the Texans' defense is arguably one of the best defenses in football this year, I just think that he's going to put up monster numbers like he did in Week 4.
Yeah, he had like 55 yards in his first 3 games, and he's really only had 1 dud game since then. It looks like Chris Johnson's finally figured it out after why we were all so puzzled of what was wrong with him. Ahmad Bradshaw, who I think is going to benefit huge from Andre Brown's injury. Andre Brown was poaching goal line carries from Bradshaw all year. Brown had 8 touchdowns, and with Brown out, I think Bradshaw is going to become the goal line back, and he's going to play mostly every down. I think maybe David Wilson will see 8 to 10 touches, but Bradshaw is going to be the feature guy in the New York Giants offense. And really what's been the story with Bradshaw all along is can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
If he can stay healthy, he's a top 10 to 12 running back.
Great talent.
He's proven that. He looked great last week. And, now that he probably is going to get the goal line carries, I like Ahmad Bradshaw a lot. I also like Michael Bush, but only if Matt Forte doesn't play. We don't know yet. It's only Wednesday. The reports are that Forte practiced a little bit, but if Forte sits, Bush doesn't have the greatest matchup versus the Seahawks, but he proved last week that if he gets the goal line carries, he might get you a touchdown or 2. He might be a nice play, especially if you're a Forte owner and you were smart enough to handcuff him to Bush. Some of the guys we don't like, Josh Freeman. He's had a good season so far. He's leading the Bucs to a nice record, but why don't you like him this week, CJ?
Yeah, well, I mean, Freeman has had a good year numbers-wise, but they're facing the Denver Broncos, and the Denver Broncos has been literally a nightmare for fantasy quarterbacks. It doesn't really matter who you are. So
Von Miller might be defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I mean, they have a fantastic defense, and I just don't think Josh Freeman is talented enough to go up against the Denver defense the way that they're playing right now.
Yeah, Von Miller might be the defensive player of the year. I didn't think he'd be this good this early, but he's an absolute beast. Joe Flacco is the quarterback that I really don't like this week. I don't think I have to explain that much. I can't understand why some people are still starting Joe Flacco in their fantasy leagues. He's playing Pittsburgh this week. Last time he played Pittsburgh, he didn't even have 200 yards passing, no touchdowns. And Pittsburgh's got a really good pass defense. I don't expect much from Flacco. I can't figure out why anybody's starting him in 10 or 12 team leagues. There's got to be better options out there, whether it's Kaepernick, like I said, Romo, Andy Dalton, any of those guys. I'd rather start Chad Henne, I think, over Joe Flacco right now. I don't know why anybody is, and I say you sit Joe Flacco this week. I don't think you're going to regret it. Torrey Smith, Joe Flacco's teammate. Pretty much the same reasons why I just said you don't like him. Torrey Smith is a very talented receiver, and I think his inconsistency this year mostly can be blamed on Flacco rather than himself.
Yeah, I mean, Torrey Smith, I think he's a great talent at receiver. He's fast, he's quick, he has great hands. Just Joe Flacco likes to say that he's a top-tier quarterback, but he doesn't like to play like he's a top-tier quarterback. And they're facing off against the Steelers, and Torrey Smith had 0 fantasy points against the Steelers early in the season, so I just don't see it happening this week.
Yeah, it was a defensive struggle last time. I think every time these Steelers and the Ravens play, it's a defensive struggle, so I don't expect much out of the Baltimore offense. Pretty much the only guy you can play in Baltimore right now is Ray Rice.
Yeah.
Greg Jennings is supposed to be coming back this week from his abdominal injury. I say you got to wait a week on Greg Jennings. He's one of the best wide receivers in football when healthy.
Yeah.
Let's just find out how healthy he is first. You don't want to start him and get burned and get 0 or 1 point from him. If you probably have better options, but if you're desperate, if you have to start Jennings, and do it. I just say I might want to wait a week before I jump the gun on him. Jeremy Maclin is another guy I'm not crazy about.
Yeah.
I haven't been crazy about any of the Eagles really this year, especially with Nick Foles at quarterback now, and that offensive line is in shambles. I'm just staying away from Jeremy Maclin, especially because Dallas has a really good passing defense. Who are you staying away from?
I don't like Vernon Davis, which is weird because Vernon Davis is one of the top producing tight ends in fantasy football. But he's facing the Rams, and last time he faced the Rams, went receptionless. And the Rams have been playing some stellar defense as of late. They've been playing really good football, and I don't think they're getting the credit that they deserve. So I just don't think Vernon Davis is going to be able to put up numbers against that defense.
Yeah, Vernon Davis has a couple games this year where he hasn't had a reception.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. They're probably their best weapon in their passing offense. I can't figure out why Jim Harbaugh wouldn't want to, create some packages and create some mismatches for Vernon Davis, but they haven't been doing it. So I agree. I don't know if you can trust Vernon Davis. There might be better options out there for tight ends. And then 2 running backs that I don't like this week. Michael Turner. He's been on my hate list before. I just think he's past his prime. He's slow. He's a plotter. Basically, in those last 3 games, he's had 78 yards on 41 carries. That's less than 2 yards per carry. That's terrible. And unless he scores a touchdown, which he might, I don't think he's going to help you at all. He might fall into the end zone once, but if he doesn't, I don't think he can help your team at all. Last time he played New Orleans, he didn't even have 20 yards rushing. So just because he has a great matchup doesn't mean I think you should start Michael Turner this week.
I think Michael Turner is very overrated running back. He gets a lot more credit than I think he deserves in the last couple seasons. He's getting up there in age, and I just don't think that he could do what he used to be able to do.
Yeah, I don't think he's the Michael Turner of like 3-4 years ago. Steven Jackson, who is getting a little bit older in age, I still think he's got some left in the tank, but he's going up against the Niners, who are 4th in the NFL against the rush. And Jackson only has 2 touchdowns this year, so that means he usually has to create a lot of yards like he did last week to help your fantasy team. I'm just not sure if he's going to do it versus the Niners this week.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for Week 13. I hope our advice can help you make the playoffs if you haven't already. And thanks for tuning in. I'm Alex Valbergs.
I'm CJ Gulino.
And I hope you check us out next semester.